What's up, you guys? Welcome to episode 488 of the Established Run NBA podcast. I'm Mike Gallagher. We are almost done with the preseason. We've got 2 days left. A lot we have learned, a lot we have liked a little bit more about where we feel about teams are, some a little bit less if we're taking positions against them. And we're going to do one of our favorite pods. Had people on Twitter ask me when we're going to do it. We're doing it right now. We're doing the Win Totals podcast. Very excited to go through our favorite picks to pick for or against teams. With me is Austin Yamada. Very excited for Austin. He is the sharpest betting mind we've got out here. And then Saum, the king of the Win Totals podcast. So let's start with the reigning champ, Saum Jafarinia, going 5-0 on his picks last year. Saum, how you doing?
I'm great. It's been quite a while since I've been back on the pod, but what a fun one to make my return for. And yeah, I was obviously really happy the way went on last year's one, but pressure's on now, and I'm ready to go. So excited to talk through these totals with you guys.
Yeah, Austin's got a bunch of stuff here. We've got a lot of stuff we agree with, a little bit we don't. It should be a fun pod. Austin, how you doing? You ready for this one?
I am. Yeah, this is one that as a listener, I listen to every year. So it's nice to be on the other side.
Yeah, for sure. So to finish the recaps, unfortunately, I went 1-2 on my officials. All of us were loving the Clippers under. We thought it was the best one on the board, but that got smoked. Missed that, and I missed the Chicago. What was I thinking for them to trade people? And then Dink, he didn't want to pop on the pod. He went 1-2 on his officials, and then also missed his honorable mention there. So, but yeah, Saum by far the king, just absolutely smashing. Almost had some Houston alts that he mentioned as well. So. Yeah, we're going to do our favorite 3, and then we'll add some honorable mentions here. So, yeah, let's start with Saum. Let's keep the streak going. What's your third favorite over-under on the board right now?
Yeah, my third favorite over-under right now is the New Orleans Pelicans over 30.5 wins. You can find this is pretty universally 30.5 any book you go to. And it's funny because my number one last season was the Pelicans under 46.5. But I think the market has flipped a little bit too much here. I do think the team has downgraded in a sense, but not as much as this win total would suggest. The big things here, of course, is they lose Brandon Ingram to the Raptors after the trade last season. The downgrade, I think, and pretty universally known from CJ McCollum to Jordan Poole, and you also have DeJounte Murray, who's going to be out until it sounds like beginning of the start of 2026. He'll be back, but I do think the case you can make for here is they're a lot deeper than they were going into last season. One of the big things and the reason was I really liked the under last season is just, the depth wasn't there, particularly at the center position. And I don't think the center situation is like amazing or anything now. And, Looney is out for 2-3 weeks, but Nisi showed enough that, he's serviceable. Again, Looney can give you some okay minutes. I don't think they're particularly great minutes or pairings with Zion, but I think it's just enough where it should be okay. And not even getting into the skinny Zion and maybe him making more of an impact and, being able to stay more healthy. And then, Trey Murphy, who's, I'm probably going to take in the My Guy draft this year. I love Herb Jones. DeJounte is fine. Like, I still like the core of the team here. So 30.5 has them basically the second to last behind or just above Utah. And, I think they're going to be, fighting for a play-in as long as they can stay relatively healthy. Now, the other argument against this is it is the Pelicans and things just fall apart. That's just what happens. And I understand they won 21 games last season, but I just think the market has slipped a little bit too much here. And I think over 30.5 is pretty strong. And another kind of bonus I like on top of that is I kind of like some division long shots here too. They're in the Southwest, and you can find some pretty long odds right now. DraftKings, they're 80-1. The best price out there right now, I believe, is ESPN Bet. They're 100-1. I think those are definitely worth a sprinkle as well. It's right now, I think it's 40-1 on FanDuel right now. I wouldn't play those, but I think that's probably closer to right than some of the 80-100 ones. So I think the division, anything 80-1 or better is interesting too. But yeah, my third favorite, the Pelicans over 30.5, taking the reverse from the under I took last season.
Yeah, I'll say the very first bet I took when the preseason bets came out was Pelicans playoffs at plus 850. So with you there, and like you said, they've got durability in pretty good spots. It does suck that, as you mentioned, the New Orleans curse. They already got Kevon Looney out 2 to 3 weeks with a knee injury. Not great for a big body there, but he's generally been pretty healthy. Jordan Poole's been really healthy. Saddiq Bey, who I absolutely love. I think Saddiq Bey, I want to bet him 6-man. I can't get there, but he's going to play like upper 20s minutes. He could score. He could fill, basically 2-3-4 for how they're going to play it. But their depth on top of Zion looking great. I think that they've got an ability to really fill it up here. Austin, I know you agree, but if you want to add anything on the Pels, then you could just go right into your number 3 pick.
Yeah, I do agree a lot. This is one of my favorite ones on the board. I bet over 29.5 earlier in the preseason. Other things I'd like to add, Zion has clauses in his contract, both for weight and he must check in like 6 times a season, this season specifically. And there's game clauses for games played. And that correlates to how much of his contract is guaranteed for the last 2 years of his contract. So it's like this skinny Zion isn't just a random thing that we don't know if the motivation will keep up. This is like a lot of dollars on the table for Zion. And he's going to fight to play through some back-to-backs towards the end of the year just to get to that games played. So there's that. Another thing is the Pelicans do not own their pick next year.
Yep.
It gets transferred, whether it's it's pick swapped, but then either way it's going to go to Atlanta or Milwaukee. Like they don't have it regardless. And so there's just no incentive to not try here. And then on top of that, like we were thinking DeJounte may not come back, and the fact that he's targeting a January return, whether or not he gets there, I think is definitely signal. Just the motivation aspect, I think, is pretty huge here. There's just a lot of like signals that they are going to try. And then their wing depth is just really, really good between Herb, Trey, and Sadiq Bey. I think this is one of the best, wing depths in the NBA. So, yep, with you there. Let's move on to my third pick. We're trying to avoid overlap here, so I don't know if this is my actual third favorite, but I'm going to go with the Toronto Raptors under 39.5, minus 122, FanDuel, minus 125, Caesars. The Raptors are just almost pick 'em to make the playoffs this year, and I think it's a lot of extrapolating that the market is doing. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I am saying, they did overperform at the end of last year against Darko and the front office's best wishes. They were kind of resisting the tank. Their team was too good against these other tanking teams, such that they had to pull some of these like AJ Lawsons and Jamal Sheds at half because even the scrubs were playing too well. And I do believe in Darko ball. I do believe in just the general team chemistry, the continuity, and the defensive effort. So I want to put all of that out there. With that being said, I think people are thinking they look good, wild shenanigans on all of their starters and, rests and half minutes and whatever. What happens when they try, and what happens when they, are playing all 5 of their starters quite a bit. And to be honest, like if you just look at the rest of the East, I think that there's a little bit of a too far of a jump here for the Raptors when you look at where the other East teams are. Yes, the East got worse. Yes, the Raptors will play all their guys. But like if we're just looking at the East in general, other teams around this, like Indiana is below them. Boston seems to be off the board on Caesars right now, but Boston was like 40.5, 41.5, only 2 wins higher. Just teams that I think are definitely better than the Raptors are lines similar to them. Philadelphia is 42.5. Miami is 38.5, and I think Miami's a better team than Toronto. The team just also doesn't fit great. I don't love their spacing. They just don't have a lot of 3-point shooting in their starting unit. Quickly can shoot, obviously. RJ has shot well in his Toronto stint, but not throughout his career. Ingram is obviously not a high volume shooter. Scotty can't really shoot, and then you have Pirtle who doesn't try and shoot at all. So it's a lot of ball handling and a lot of ball movement, but not a ton of individual defenders outside of Scotty, and not a ton of spacing. So I just think that like the East being bad tax is a little too priced in here, to the point where if you're just comparing Toronto and Boston, which are 2 wins apart, if Toronto and Boston opened on a neutral, I just don't think that they're going to be like, if it was, call it Boston -3 on a neutral court opening night, I would hammer Boston here. I don't think that they're that close. So that is where I'm at. Curious if you guys have thoughts on Toronto under.
Yeah, go ahead, Saum, and then I'll jump in and take my number 3.
Yeah, I'm with Austin here. I do like the under. Again, I laid out the concern is basically like maybe just the East, like around them is just like bad enough where they can get to, close to 500, just having some decent guys. But it's really the fit here. I mean, even going into last year, I thought the fit of their big three, quote unquote, with Quickly, RJ, and Scotty was like not the greatest. They're a bunch of guys, they want to have the ball in their hands, not exactly who you want for spacing. And then if you like had to pick anyone in the league to like that just is probably like a terrible fit, I'd honestly probably pick Brandon Ingram to throw into them, and they trade for Brandon Ingram. So you just have a bunch of high usage ball dominant guys who aren't going to really space the floor, and it's a very very odd fit. So again, the big concern here is like I think they have like a decent group of guys. I think the depth is pretty good here too, but the fit between all these starters here, it just doesn't make any sense to me, and there's so many concerns that I'm definitely, it probably wouldn't have made my list, but I definitely agree here that the under is the play.
Yeah, I'm unsure. Like the fit is definitely the biggest problem, and I don't know about the continuity. These guys are never on the court. I think their starting unit played like 5 games together last year, and they're also missing time. I didn't look that Pirtle missed a lot of preseason. Did return the last game, and I don't like their second unit that much. I think Jamal Shedd's fine. I think Grady Dick's like overrated. He's going to be like, out of the rotation pretty quick. Kobe Walters like pretty interesting, and I don't know. They're going to play Sanju Mamakavashvili, who like couldn't crack the rotation on other teams. Like he's locked in as their backup center, so I don't like their depth. On top of the fact that Scotty Barnes should also add. Scotty Barnes like is still worried about his pinky injury. Like that may still affect his offensive scoring. So definitely, it would be more of a no bet for me, but certainly not going to push back against it. I'm actually flipping my third bet because I don't want to have all overs. So my honorable mention, I'm going to put this in my third spot. I'm going to go Memphis Grizzlies under 40.5. A little bit skewed on how I've seen them in the preseason. They are in such disarray. I think that the fact that like all these guys have been hurt for so long and they're trying to adopt this new Thomas Isilo system, I think it's going to hurt them. They're allowing like as much first half points in the preseason as the freaking Long Lions. They're giving almost 30 in the first half. Like this team is going to play too fast for their own good. We've seen Ja already get hurt. Jaren Jackson's already banged up. Zach E. They're going to start freaking Jock Landale in the West. It's just like this margin for error is so thin. I think Cedric Coward is going to be good, but I don't feel great about their wing depth overall. I think that things could go south, and they have all these picks, and they could like unload Contavious Caldwell-Pope, who's kind of a floor raiser. I could see things going really south, and this bet like kind of smashing. Where like, oh no, why did like? As I have a lot of Jaren Jackson best ball, like, oh no, why did I do it? I feel like it can go that bad. We've seen the Grizzlies really unload, and they're building for the future. They picked up all those draft picks in the Desmond Payne trade, so they're clearly not overly incentivized to like go for it with the way they built up this draft capital there. So I'm going to go officially Memphis under 40.5 there. Austin, how do you feel about Memphis under 40.5 wins?
If I were forced to bet, I think I would take the under, but I don't have an actual bet on it. Just to be devil's advocate, I do think John Bain was a bit of an odd fit, especially as Bain took on more ball skills, and I think will just have a really good season this year. And then Memphis is just a really good developmental program, so like these randos that will take a step forward that we haven't thought of. But with that being said, I would lean the under if I had to bet here. I also think they like lost some underrated, like I think Luke Kennard's pretty underrated too. They lost him, and they just like Bain and Kennard is just a bunch of shooting, and like they're just really leaning into this. Like also, there's just a like continuity effect is a big thing, and so like playing under a new-ish head coach with a totally different system. Like even if you think that the ball screens are the way instead of their weird wheel motion offense, do they have the personnel to run a pick and roll stuff without a lot of shooters? And then like it's just not something that they've run a ton. Like all their players have a different offense and brain. I don't think it's as easy to snap your fingers. So I lean under if I were forced to.
Yeah, and then Saum, if you want to add to that, and then you can go ahead with your number 2 pick.
Yeah, I'm fully in agreement with this on the under 40.5. I mean, you talked about already with the front court, right? Where Zach is going to miss time to start the year. Brandon Clark already is going to start time of the year. We talk about the Pelicans as far as like teams just kind of like, just falling apart. And I mean, Memphis is like the poster child of this, and it's already happening. We haven't gone to the season, but seems optimistic for Jaren and Ja for opening night. But like the fact that we're already having, so many questions on all these guys before we even get to the season just kind of encapsulates what this team's going to be. Kind of like Austin said, I do think like, they are pretty good at the developmental side. I do like some of their secondary guys. I've been a Vince guy. I think Jerome was a solid pickup. The end of last season didn't go well, but he was great during the regular season. So I do like the depth here a little bit, but 40.5 in the West, I think there's a lot of ways this can go really wrong too. So yeah, I'm fully in agreement here on the Memphis. And I'll just say in general too, I think the the West after the top tier is a bit more flat, and it kind of goes on with like a lot of our totals we're going through than some of these win totals would suggest. So I'm fully on board with the Memphis under 40.5. And with that, my second pick, another under, it is going to be the Brooklyn Nets under 20.5 wins. Now, this is a super low line. Of course, they could be terrible and like still go over. And last year, like, everyone going into the season expected them to be terrible last season as well. And they still won 26 games, but that's a little doesn't tell the whole story because they started out actually pretty decently and then really, really turned the tank on towards the end of the season. And their owner Joe Tsai, he was on I believe it was the All in NBA podcast, and he had this quote which really says how they're going to go. Joe Tsai this season, he says, "We have one first round pick in 2026, and we hope to get a good pick. So you can kind of predict what kind of strategy we'll use for this season." That essentially could just spell out the under right there. It is very clear how they want to go about the season. They want to be terrible. They are terrible. This is such a low line already that I understand, they could be terrible and still go over. But I think, this is going to be really, really ugly. The one concern is I think Jordy is such a good coach that he can maybe, in this terrible East, will them to 22 wins. That is the concern. But it's very clear, especially after last season, they ended up with the 8th or 9th pick, I think it was, after not really pulling the tank. But I think from the get-go here, they're going to be kind of focused on the goal of just being terrible. They don't have their 2027 pick. That goes to use, and this is the time. So give me the Nets under 20.5 wins for my second favorite total.
Yeah, they started out last year 3-3, and we were like, oh my god, they beat the Grizzlies, and we were like, and they beat the Bucks. It was like, oh boy, we talked up. I don't think we took it because the line was so low. And actually, I think I said that wait on it and then get the line when it jumps up, which it hit. But yeah, I think that that was the deal. They tanked too late. They had their guys too long. Dennis Schroeder was too good, and now they're they know that all right, we got to go in day one. Igor Demon looked terrible in summer league. He's already hurt. Their point guard depth is trash. They can't handle the ball. They don't have enough generation for offense. Their second unit's pretty bad, and yeah, like you said, they're going to tank it up. And their offense is by design is going to be just a disaster. We've got them projected for the fewest points, so it's a low number in the East, sure. But like you're saying, they want to lose it. They want to lose, and hey, might as well. If they want to do it, give them the under. What do you think, Austin? Then go ahead with your number 2.
I like it too. And I think the things that I was going to raise as possible concerns, some already mentioned, is I'm baking these in, which is their best players back, and that's Jordy Fernandez. And I also think Claxton's in for a pretty big bounce back. He said he was playing hurt last year with some back stuff, and I think he is a very winning player. But he also could be traded, and I agree with everything else he said. And then the only point I would add is even if you were summing, call it their 3 best players, maybe they're better than Utah's 3 best players or Washington's 3 best players. But Brooklyn is going to be, if you're talking about fit, Brooklyn's going to be 24-hour fitness basketball. It's just going to be MPJ and Cam Thomas taking really bad shots. And I think I might have mentioned this on the Brooklyn preview pod, but MPJ, anyone who's listening should go look at MPJ's shooting splits with and without Jokic.
Yep.
And that's even before adjusting for shot selection. That's just just generally the wide open looks he's getting. And then he's going to start changing his shot chart with Brooklyn too. He's going to take more middies and stuff too. But even the shots that he was taking, just the 3-point and the rim stuff is just crazy different with and without Jokic. So yeah, I am in agreement there.
Yep. I got that. I cite that stat all the time. He shot 49% off Joker on 3-point attempts there. So with you there. So go ahead with your next one, Austin.
Yeah, this might be a kind of unpopular one, but I really like Detroit under 46.5, minus 110 on DraftKings, minus 125 on Caesars. I think there's just a lot of Detroit hype here, and they basically had the dream season last year. I don't think anyone could have predicted I think everyone could agree that was their 99th or 100th percentile outcome in terms of continuity and winning and taking a step forward and just winning culture, winning close games late. The team defense, Cade was healthy all season. Malik Beasley had a dream season. Tim Hardaway Jr. had a out of nowhere season. Jalen Duren took a step forward. Basically everything went right that could have went right. Tobias was super healthy and was super efficient. And they won 44 games. And I know that the East has gotten worse, but basically, if they ran it back with everything perfect, and they just remove Beasley, and everyone was as healthy as they were last year, and the young guys take a step forward, and everyone plays like they did, I'm not sure that 46.5 is the right line even then. To project 2.5 wins like off of the East getting worse, that seems like a lot, and then it just seems like there's so many outs to the under. Like I don't think I could realistically picture a scenario where they win 52 games this year. I just don't think that the right tail outcomes are there. And 46.5 is such a big line. Like 48 kind of feels like their ceiling to me. The team isn't meaningfully different from a personnel standpoint from the team that was the worst team in basketball 2 years ago. And like any sort of injury to Cade, it's pretty bad. Also, like they were exceptionally good once Ivy got hurt. Ivy's back. Levert's there. There's just like the blueprint that they built was give the Cade the ball 90% of the time, surround him with shooters, and run a good slow defense, and just dominate the boards. And they might still dominate the boards, but like the players that they're playing this year are like directly clashing with Cade's play style. So, they're an exciting team. I think they're generally directionally up for the future, but at 46.5, it just feels too high to me, especially when we're talking about these teams under them that I think are actually better. So they're more of a regular season win team that's not going to be resting. They're like, they don't have these old guys to rest, but that's kind of my case. I also bet some Pistons to not make the playoffs at plus 375. I'm curious on your guys' thoughts. I think you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, Saum, and then I'll chime in.
Yeah, I'm a little more skeptical on this one, I would say, as Austin kind of alluded, being an unpopular one. I certainly wouldn't bet the over. I don't love them or anything, but I just do think in the East, like they are solid enough that, I kind of think of them as a mid 40s wins team. Now, I think the one big loss, of course, is Malik Beasley. And I still don't think people understand just how epic of a season Beasley had. They did kind of replace that shooting with Duncan Robinson, but I don't think he can quite replace what Beasley had. And like, they don't have a ton of shooting as it is. So I think that loss might be, maybe more overstated than thinking. But, I think, Cade just took such a massive step forward. I think he can do it again. I'm really high on Duran and Asar. I think they're both going to take big steps. I think the Ivy piece is probably like, honestly, if anything for the under, I think he is just such an odd fit on this team that it'll probably work against them. Perhaps he can get traded or something. I'm pretty high on Ron Holland as well. So I think the fit here could be a little awkward. Just I do think there is probably not enough shooting that it could be a problem. But generally still, I'm pretty high on the individual pieces here. And in the East, I think they're probably like a mid-40s win team. So I don't love this one, but certainly I wouldn't want to bet the over or anything.
Yeah. Austin kind of sold me. That was a really good point on how the line was so low 2 years ago. I thought this is probably my least favorite still, just because, like Saum said, just betting on the growth of like 20 and 22-year-olds and Jalen Duran. Ivy's still young. A lot of buzz on Ivy again. And hey, Ivy shot 40% on catch and shoots last year, or even higher actually. But yeah, I think it makes sense just because, like you said, Cade has had a pretty bad history of health. He's getting way overdrafted in season-long leagues, by the way. But yeah, I get it. I'm more of a no bet here, but Austin made some really good points. I'll go to my number 2 pick, and it's going to be an over. It's going to be one I did last year that did hit. I'm going Golden State Warriors over 47.5 wins. I don't know. I just believe in Steph Curry, really, and I believe in Draymond. I believe in Jimmy Butler. Really, the big stat to hang my hat on here is they went 23-7 in the games with Jimmy Butler. Yes, that was kind of like tanking basketball, but I feel pretty good about where the Warriors are. I think their depth's pretty solid. I think Moses Moody, who was hurt a lot last year, I think he's going to make a big impact. Pajemski was also hurt last year. He's going to play better. Al Horford's a really winning player, so really like him. So, yeah, I think the Warriors, it's 47.5 on DraftKings. As I'm trying to find it on the screen here, it's hard to talk and navigate. It's DraftKings search feature's not working. But, yeah, I like their depth. I'm not worried about Kuminga negatively impacting this team, and yeah, just their depth's pretty good. So I think they could, if there's a catastrophic injury to Steph, I'm like dead. But I think if like Jimmy gets hurt or if Draymond gets hurt, like I think you could still kind of trend water. And I just think this team's like really, really good. So yeah, Austin, what do you think of the Warriors over 47.5?
It's not a bet I would make for different reasons. I think I materially agree with everything you said, and I think I like see them just exactly like you did. I think I'll just be sort of leveraging that by betting them single games this season. So like when we know that they're all in, I think I will just end up on the Warriors side quite a bit. Um, the reason I'm not betting the season long is just because nothing that I disagree with what you said, just kind of like I think they're going to funnel into this play-in spot. Like if they are coasting too much, they're going to rest Steph and Jimmy at the end. And then if they're like in danger of missing the playoffs like last year, then they're going to be forced to ride them. But like we kind of saw the toll that it took on them, Steph and Jimmy going like they had to ride them so hard when they wanted to rest them down the stretch, but they had to play them, and then they had to play a bunch of back-to-backs that they didn't want to force them to play, and then they met up with the Rockets, and that took out a bunch out of them, and then they just had nothing left for I think it was Minnesota. So I think if possible they're going to want to avoid that, just the way that they talk and the way I just think like 48 wins is going to be like, if they're, on track for 48 to 49 wins, I do think they might rest some Steph and Jimmy down the stretch. So that's the only reason I wouldn't personally bet a regular season win total. I would rather target either single game stuff or like more of like a playoff type format where it's like, to reach the conference finals bet or something like that. But I don't think I disagree with Mike in terms of the Warriors.
Yeah. And then Sam, if you want to add anything on the Warriors, and then go ahead with your number one pick.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more neutral on this one, kind of similar like on the Pistons under. Don't think I have a strong lean either way. Yeah, the big thing, like you said too, is like, when Jimmy came in, they were just a machine, like one of the better records in the league. However, that was like, right from the get go when they got Jimmy, they need to like put foot on the gas like to the max. Everything came down like that last game against the Clippers where was to avoid the play and everything. So I do like their depth here. The other worry too is like Jimmy typically in the regular season has not, I don't know if care is the right word, but has not taken it maybe as seriously as would hope. So that kind of plays into it. But I do like their depth here that, even if their core is, on the older side, I do think they get through the regular season pretty well. So yeah, like I said, I don't have a huge stance either way. Probably if I did have to take a side, it would be the over, but not too confident there. And then, with that, I'll get to the number one pick, and that is the Oklahoma City Thunder over 62.5 wins. Now, this is a monstrous line. I understand. They could have like a insanely epic season and still go under this. The West is insane. But man, they are just I don't think people just quite understand like how good this team was last season.
Mm-hmm.
It should be clear. They had the best record in the league. They won the championship. And I still think they're underrated, as crazy as it sounds. I mean, they won 68 games. It's not like they were super healthy either. They only played 15 games with all their starters. They had a 12.9 point per game differential. I mean, this team is just so loaded. And even if you don't want to say that they're better this season, their team is largely the same. You can't say they're worse. So I can't say enough things about just like how good this team is. I think they're closer to a 70-win team than a 60-win team, as crazy as that sounds in the West. But yeah, I'm just super optimistic on just them repeating essentially what was, an all-time great season. One concern is it sounds like Jalen Williams, J-Dub has a chance to miss a little bit at the start of the season. I'm not too concerned about it, even if he does miss a game or two. And another argument too is, what if they really are just too good? Like last season, they finished the first seed by like 13 games, and they already won the championship. Maybe they take their foot off the gas a little bit. I mean, how many times do we see their games where they'll sit like their top three guys and they'll still just crush teams? I mean, Aaron Wiggins will come in and he'll score 30. Isaiah Joe will come in, he'll score 20. Like, this team just has so much depth. They're so young. They're still getting better. There's continuity here. Yeah, I really, really like OKC here. And I understand it's a huge number, but I still don't think it's quite high enough. I think this should be in the mid 60s. And another bet I like, which isn't a fun one, and look, season long bets like this aren't the greatest, but them to have the best record in the league is minus 120 right now on DraftKings. It's like minus 130 on Caesars. I think anything, kind of reasonable juice around there is good. I think like if they don't have the best regular season record this year, I'd be like shocked. I'd be like, something has gone like really wrong here. And I don't like season long bets, really like playing that kind of juice for something like this, but I don't think the market still has adjusted enough for just how dominant this team is. So this was one of the honorable mentions last year. It was somewhere in the high 50s. But this is going to be my number one pick this year. I like Oklahoma City over 62.5 wins. And like I said, I think the best record stuff is really good too. So give me all the OKC.
Yeah, to your point, they rested guys against the Sixers last year when the Sixers were tanking. They won by 33. They rested guys against the Bulls. They won by almost 30. Like, this team's so deep. Um, I'll go first. Like, I think that your point about the regular season win, you're basically just betting against the Cavs
Yeah.
for like top win total in the East. Like, I think that's your biggest fear. And I do think the Cavs and Austin's pretty high in the Cavs, so we're not going to talk about them. We talked about them in previous pods that we like their long stuff. But yeah, I'm with you. I know what Austin's going to say. It's just a huge number, but their depth's so good. And like we just saying, like if they miss guys, they're covered. And not only they're covered like everywhere. They've got enough handling without Shea. They've got enough big man depth with J. Will. They've got enough wing depth. They're covered across the board. They need multiple guys to miss like 20 to 30 games to like really not hit low 50s or mid 50s, I should say. I just think this team's too good. Love the coaching staff. And yeah, I just think this team's awesome. So yeah, 60 is a lock. 63 is just a little bit tougher. And if these West teams, I think this makes sense too. If these West teams are kicking each other's asses and the Thunder have a nice little gap, maybe you lose a little bit, and they're like dialing it back because they had a really long run last year. So yeah, Austin, I know you're not too into this one, so go ahead on why you don't like it as much, and then your number one pick.
Yeah, this is actually the only one out of our 9 officials that I think I directionally disagree with. But it is scary to fade the King, who went 5-0 last year, and I really liked his other picks too. So it is scary that this is number one, and I don't like it. I can go into why, and I think it actually has less to do with OKC specifically, and more to do with just a fundamental disagreement on a team being lined at this number, especially in a conference this good. There's just a lot of, I come from a baseball background where teams don't win 70, like to win 75% of games is incredibly hard in any of the big four sports. And then on top of that, 75% doesn't even get you 63 wins. You have to win more than 75% games. And I have Denver actually pretty close in terms of in talent to OKC. And there's just enough games throughout the season where it'll be OKC at Denver or OKC at Minnesota, OKC at the Clippers that like, I think they're, you can pick off some games there. They did miss games with their bigs, but their like guards were super healthy last year. Shea, Jade, like a lot of their top guards. I don't think Caruso missed many games. Shea and J-Dub didn't really miss many games. Like you said, even when they do miss games, like OKC will still be probably a favorite over pretty much any team they play. So it's not like, they have enough depth that if one's missing, even Shea, they're still going to be an incredible team. But I do think they generally benefited from good health. And then the last 2 points are like, if you just look at historically regular season win totals, I don't remember who mentioned this, but I remember hearing on a pod a couple of years ago that just the research shows that like everything converges to the middle. The teams that are lined above 50.5, more than 50% of the time go under, or like 54% of the time go under, just by nature of that's how prediction markets work. And like the teams that are lined too low typically go over. And then kind of like the last piece is kind of what you mentioned about, we typically see these teams that have these huge number one seed, best record teams. They want to do it once to get it, and then they kind of coast the next year just because like they are going to prioritize another chip. We saw OKC rest a decent amount 2 years ago going into the playoffs, and they didn't as much last year because they wanted sort of like this record thing that I don't think they're going to chase again. So I just think like there's just no incentive for them to reach the mid 60s back-to-back years. But I don't really disagree with any of the points on their talent. Like OKC is clearly the best team in basketball.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'll say I like your number one more than my number one, but I gave it to you since. But go ahead.
Yeah. So my number one and Mike's number one are my co-number ones. We just split. Yeah. We liked them both. I think Saum also likes this one. The Lakers under 47.5 minus 115 on FanDuel. I bet this under 49.5 with the knowledge that thinking that LeBron was in before this stuff came out. LeBron is going to miss like a month, and it moved down 2 wins, and I think that's roughly equitable value. So like, I don't think this is like chasing a bad number. I think 47.5 with the LeBron knowledge is similar value to what I bet 49.5, assuming LeBron was going to be healthy sometime in the first week. Yeah, there's just so many reasons that I don't like the Lakers. I think I mentioned some of them on the preview pod for them, but basically like, I don't think the fit is good between the 3 stars. I don't think anyone would think that. I don't think they have a lot of catch and shooting. If you look at like their 3-point volume, their main 3 guys, especially Luka and LeBron, are all off the dribble threes. And they're not used to playing those roles. Like we it's just not a lot of spacing. So like, they don't have a lot of 3-point shooting, and then the 3-point shooting they do have just is you can't just take it for face value because they're going to be taking on different roles. I think their center depth is pretty terrible. I think DeAndre Ayton is totally a losing player, and he basically has been everywhere he has been, including just like his habits off the court and just the other cancerous natures that he seems to bring to locker rooms. I think that like he's not a good player on the court either, and I think that like his lapses in concentration, I don't see a way where Luka, LeBron, and JJ put up with this all season. I think he's at risk of being cut, but there's just no one behind him either. And then they lost DFS, Dorian Finney-Smith, who I think is incredibly good and important to their, like the only 3-and-D guy on the roster, the guy who can play some small ball 5, the guy who does all the little things, and the guy who doesn't touch the ball, the guy who adds value without touching. Like that's the guy they need, and they lost him. It takes away all of their small units, because when they ran quote unquote small, it was still Luka, LeBron, DFS, and Rui, which is like 4 positionally bigger 3-4s. Now like their best lineup is probably going to include like Laravia or Smart, and so like can they get away with not playing a big without DFS? I don't know. DFS was guarding 4s and 5s last year, and then they don't have a lot of
ones too. He guarded like James Harden at times.
Yeah, like outside of Marcus Smart, who's more of a bigger guard defender, they don't really have any point of attack defenders this year. They're talking about Jake Laravia as like their main on-ball guy. Like that should tell you all you need to know about who they have and who they don't have. And then on top of that, like I think there's a lot of bad vibes here. I don't think LeBron believes in this team. I don't think he's committed the way that he is. And we've seen historically, like LeBron, his effort just plays such a big part. Like Luka gets traded. We think their defense collapses last year, trading AD for Luka. And then their defense becomes like one of the best in the league. And a lot of that is just LeBron's effort, and just the effort that he demands is just this sort of unmeasurable effort / vibes thing that seeps into the rest of the team. And if he's not trying, I just think that this could go really sour. The only thing that I'm worried about here is Luka, skinny Luka. He, for all the reasons I hated him last year, are the reasons that he is good in this context, which is basically he is a ceiling lowerer but a floor raiser, similar to like prime Russell Westbrook. He can drag a team of nobodies to a 500 or better record on his own. I don't think they can get to like these 55 wins with Luka, but I think that he can kind of stabilize, or like a prime Carmelo Anthony. They can just stabilize, turn all these offensive possessions into decent ones, and just stabilize into this like slightly above average team. And now he's also motivated and he's in good shape and he's maybe playing defense. So I think if this loses, it's because Luka has basically a historic season.
Yeah, I'll go first to add into it. So you talked. I think that my biggest concern, 2 of them, their depth. I hate their depth, which you laid out. And then just to kind of hammer home your point about on-ball defense, the other day a player went for 35, 7, and 9 as a guard that just drove down Marcus Smart's throat. Wasn't Cade, wasn't Anthony Edwards, wasn't Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. It was Jared Butler. Like, he might not make the team. And they had most of their elite perimeter guys, or their good perimeter guys. They didn't have Jared Vanderbilt. This defense is going to be bad if they're not top 5 in offense, or Luka goes ham. And if Luka goes ham, they are going to be top 5 in offense. If they're like 8th in offense, this bet's going to coast, man. And they're going to be nowhere near. I think you could take the Lakers not missing the playoffs, all that stuff on top of the LeBron concerns. So, yeah, Saum, you're a Lakers fan. Are you going to bet against your team? Maybe an emotional hedge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm quite as pessimistic as you guys, but generally, yeah, I am with you guys here. I think the under 47.5 is pretty good here. I mean, just before getting the team, I mean, like you guys said, the vibes are just not bad. I mean, we don't have any idea really on this LeBron timetable. They said at least 3 to 4 weeks. It doesn't sound like he's done a whole lot at all. The question they asked Aiden, like, what's it like playing with Luka and LeBron? He goes, well, I haven't, so I don't know. It's not great. And I will say, like, I don't want to be the Aiden defender, but I do think it's maybe gone like a little too far south of like what Aiden is. But this team is really flawed in a lot of ways. But yeah, the thing that would kind of blow this up is just a super epic Luka season, which is very in the cards. And like you said, that he gets them like a top 5 offense and kind of just carries them as is. Luka teams have never been like elite in the regular season as is, but maybe with skinny Luka now, that changes. But yeah, this team, depth-wise, is just, I think, going to struggle a lot. And I mean, we're already seeing, Jared Vanderbilt yesterday left the game the second quarter with the quad contusion. Like, they really need him. Like, they can't afford to lose Jared Vanderbilt as well. So yeah, as much as it hurts to say, I do think not quite as down on them as you guys, but I do agree that the under 47.5 is good here.
Yeah, I'll say this is. I've bet this probably 3 to 4 times as much as my number one. So officially, it's Austin's number one, but like this is mine. I love this one too. Austin also loves my official number one, and we're gonna go over here. We're gonna go over Blazers 34.5 wins. I really like that. On top of what we were thinking before, I like their scheme right now. I like how they're playing so fast. They're first in the NBA in pace. I think they've got the personnel to do it and put pressure on you defensively and then run and just like be adequate enough and play in transition to get them going there. So I think 34.5 is a really good bet. And I just like this wing depth. I think Drew Holiday's a winning player. I think Jeremy Grant, despite shooting like upper 30s on twos last year, he'll bounce back. We saw Denny Avdia go nuclear. We called him Jewish Giannis, West Coast Giannis. I think that's pretty sticky. And I'm like mildly okay with their wing depth. I think Blake Wesley, like obviously most people don't know who he is, but I think he's a competent on-ball pressure guy, another guy that can give them a little bit of on-ball depth when Drew Holiday's off the court. I think Chris Murray's not bad. I think Young Hanson's going to be a little bit better than I thought. I kind of like what I've seen out of the preseason. And then Time Lord, I wish they were going to play him more. That would make me feel really good, and I would be jamming this as much as the Lakers. But really like their depth. Didn't even mention Tumani Kamara yet, one of the best on-ball defenders. They're just so deep at stopping on-ball defense, and they have so many ways to play defense now with Klingon and drop. They could switch and play more switchability, which we saw a lot. Klingon's minutes are really short. They're running like 4-minute stints, which I think is good. I think they'll be able to keep him fresh and running out there. But yeah, just their top 8, I really, really like, and just being so good defensively. We saw, like, obviously OKC's offense is way, way better, but, if you have a top 5 defense, which they had down the stretch last year, and they were basically playing 500 ball when they weren't incentivized to. I just really like this team. And I think Chauncey Billups really proved that he's like an adequate coach here. So yeah, really just betting on defense. I think they're going to be excellent. So Austin, why do you love this one so much as much as me?
Yeah, I think this team's really good. We're not even going to cherry pick endpoints here. I'm just going to take the second half of the season. The back 41 games, just split the season into two. They They were on a 46 win pace in the second half of the season, and they were like kind of they were resting guys like Jeremy Grant didn't play. Shaden, when he had like something minor, wouldn't play.
They're playing Duap Reith. They were playing
like they were definitely not, outside of playing Denny a bunch of minutes, like they definitely were not trying to win their games. And I think they rested Anthony a good amount too. And like they were a 46 win pace with a top 5 defense down the stretch. We saw the emergence of I think people listening to this pod should go look up Denny's second half stats. It was like 25, 10, and 5, something like around that, with like absurd shooting splits. And I think, like you said, Drew's a winning player. I
got it pulled up. Yeah, he was 23, almost 10 rebounds, 5 assists on 51% from the field, 42% from 3, and then almost 80% from the line. Like absolute smash.
Yeah, that's like I'm not saying he's a top 5 player in the league. But those numbers are like, if he were to do that over a whole season, are what like top. He plays defense too. He's the center of the offense. And then like Shaden, like I think people didn't talk enough about like Shaden's season's efficiency is roughly the same because his 3-point stroke disappeared, but like he was like unreal finisher around the rim last year. If he just gets back to like decent 3-point shooting, he's also one of the most efficient players in the league, and he's probably coming off the bench. You add back Jeremy Grant, Thibault might be healthier, Time Lord might be healthier. You add in Drew, Kamara might take a step forward, Scoot might take a step forward. Like this is just no stock down players, a bunch of stock up players. They're going to be trying from day one. This just feels like one of the better teams. Or I don't see them meaningfully different than the 40.5 win teams out there. Like, if Ja comes back for opening night, Memphis versus Portland on a neutral, like is Memphis like at all better than Portland? Like, I don't know.
I don't think so.
I think it's pretty close.
And there's it's a 6 gap. Memphis, we're talking about 40.5, and that's crazy.
Right. Like the difference between Portland and Memphis, the difference between Memphis and like the upper teams in the West, according to the market. I just think this is so. I bet the playoffs too at plus 425. I think these are just such long odds for this team that I think is a pretty good shot to at least be in a play-in spot. So if you take like playoffs at plus 425, I think you're still sitting on a decent ticket heading into the play-ins, that like you have a live player, live team, a live ticket at plus 4 something. And their depth is so good too. it would be hard for it to see fall apart. Like there isn't a single player that makes their team their team. So like there's just not a lot of outs for them to have a disastrous season, in my opinion. Like their floor seems like low 30s to me. And like, yeah, I think that they have too many players for not enough starting spots. The fact that Shaden or Jeremy Grant, even when Scoot comes back, two of those guys will have to come off the bench. I think this team's really good. Saum, do you have any thoughts on Portland?
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. I mean, the one thing I will say is if like any concerns, I do think offensively could be a bit of a struggle here. I mean, if Denny is going to be the 25, 10 and 5 guy that he was down the stretch, then, those worries go away. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of nitpicking. I do think 34.5 is really low for how good, they can be. And it's kind of like, Austin said, compare them to Memphis. And like I said earlier, in this pod, it's just, I think the West is a bit more flat kind of on the back end than a lot of these win totals would suggest. And, they got a lot of guys Tumani Kamara, I think is just like an ETR favorite as a whole. Yang Hansen, I'm excited to see what he's going to do too. I do like the depth here. And I do think, that they'll probably be in that play-in mix. It's just, again, like I said, if there is any kind of hole to poke, I do think the offense could be a bit of a struggle. But man, they are going to be so good defensively, and I think if we'll see a Thibault too, just adding on to what they have, is going to be pretty good. So yeah, I'm right there with you guys on liking this Portland over 34.5.
Yeah, I'll steal Austin's line. Austin had a great line a while ago. Like, try to find a better defense, not an OKC. That's a 5-man unit with Drew Holiday, Tumani Kamara, Matisse Thybulle, Jeremy Grant, and Time Lord. Even like Klingon, like that's still better than anything that the league would put out there. So, yeah, love Portland. We're big Blazers. I'll be busting out my Dame jersey a lot during the content this year. So, yeah, let's get into some honorable mentions here. Let's go with Austin since he's got the most, or sort of the most. We've kind of got a couple overlaps here. But I'll go to you, Austin, for first. Your favorite honorable mention that didn't quite make the cut.
Probably Philly over 42.5. The reason it was an honorable mention is because I think their talent base is like clearly better than the 42.5 center point. And I think no one's going to disagree on that. I think the disagreement kind of comes on like how many games their good players play and how bad they are when they don't play. So like, I think the reason it's an honorable mention is more like you're probably better off betting sort of like a long shot, not even division stuff. I think you bet them single game and you bet them kind of like to go far in the playoffs. I think that's kind of the way you attack Philly here. But I don't think that their talent base is representative of a 42.5 team. Basically the thought here is like, Joel Embiid was so bad last year. He was so negative that like you don't need Joel Embiid to be his MVP self. If he is, this coast. If he is for half the games and doesn't play half the games, you probably coast. If he's not playing at all, then he's not negative. Like he's just not going to be what it was last year. All of the injuries, the depth, the tanking, and just like their best player being one of the worst players is just not going to happen. He either won't be playing or he'll be better. Paul George has to be better than he was last year. They have more depth now with like Edgecombe and the nice thing about when everyone went out is they got to develop they got the pick for Edgecombe. Jared McCain has proven that he's a good rotation player. Quentin Grimes emerged, and so you kind of merge the best aspects that Nurse found from last year with the players coming back. Maxey took a step forward too, and then also just like I think that like Daryl Morey is going to really try, like his job's probably on the line if they have another bad season. You would think that there's enough at stake here between Embiid, Paul George, and Daryl Morey that they have things to play for. I think they're going to really try here. So yeah, I just think that, like there's too much talent here and they also see the opportunity in the East. Like, why would they not go for it? So yeah, I think, this is a bet that's honorable mention because I can see ways that it loses pretty easily, but that's my argument.
Yeah, I think the ceiling bets are better. And I'll say this was my third one that I flipped to Memphis. Paul George is practiced fully right now while we were recording, so that's a really good sign. Yeah, I think this is a pretty good bet. I would maybe even put this on an official, but yeah, like Austin was saying, I mean, their depth's much better. Quentin Grimes, VJ Edgecombe, Justin Edwards is underrated. Kyle Lowry, as much as we don't want him to play, like he's still like okay, and he won't like kill your team. Eric Gordon can make shots. Trendon Watford's been playing great. I love him. Jabari Walker, arguably, on the short list, top 5 two-way players that actually can contribute to winning. I think Adem Bona could take a leap. So this team runs like 12 deep on NBA caliber players to really insulate them if things go bad. So anything for you, Saum, then can kind of get into. You can just knock out your other ones just together here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just say this is probably where I'd sway from you guys a little bit. I wouldn't rush to bet the under or anything. It's just I want nothing to do with this team. I don't know what to
Yeah.
make of it. I don't know, on a day to day like who their best. It's just yeah, I do agree. I do like the depth here. That even if we do get again just from their top like PG and Embiid, like they can sail through it a little bit better. But just generally, I mean, it is a pretty low number like in the East for what their talent level is, like Austin said. But I just don't have any confidence that Embiid is gonna can play over 40 games. But Austin, like I said, if things go like somewhat normally for them, I do think the over is probably pretty good here. But I just have no confidence in it to want to bet that. But yeah, just a couple honorable mentions for me here. First one is the Clippers over 48.5 wins. That's on DraftKings and Caesars. This opened, I think, 49.5 pretty universally. And then after all the, Kawhi and aspiration stuff, it's gone down, settled in like 48.5. But this team is so deep. I mean, like they like 10 11, like they can sit, one or two guys like each game, and they'll still have like a better 9 or 10 man rotation than most teams. So I just think it's a really strong way for them to get the regular season. Kawhi, I mean, down the stretch at the end of the playoffs last season, playing mega minutes. It's looked great in preseason. There's been no setbacks on anything. This is probably like, as good as you can ask for him coming into the season. Zoo and, one of our favorites last year, he could take a step back or step forward again. Brook Lopez behind him is like really, really like one of the better big backups. So yeah, I just think this team is super deep and like they can just really get through this regular season as a 50-win team. And then my other honorable mention is the Chicago Bulls over 32.5 wins. No fancy analysis or anything here. It's just like they won 39 games last year. This team has just like, mid 30s wins all over it again. The big argument is kind of like, if they do blow it up, they trade Vooch, if they trade Io, but like, they've shown no inclination still that they have any intention of, bottoming out or anything. Like this is just a 10 seed, like waiting to happen. Yeah, it's just, Mas Vazelis is a guy we're all really high on at ETR. So yeah, it's just, I just think it's nothing special. I don't love them or anything. It's just, I just think they're a mid 30s win team again, as they always are. And, they had a better record without Zach LaVine last year than they did with him. So I don't think the loss of him really impacts much. So yeah, Bulls over 32.5 wins and Clippers over 48.5 wins as my two honorable mentions.
Yeah, I kind of like them. I definitely think that the Clippers are in a pretty good spot. Their depth's really, really strong. But yeah, so I won't disagree with that. And then yeah, I don't know. I can't bet the Bulls. I bet against them last year and lost. Like, what are they doing, man? It's so hard to just keep thinking they're going to do it over and over. Their depth's pretty good though. But but again, Vooch looks kind of bad overall. So yeah, Austin, anything for you on these? And then actually, I'll just get mine out, and you can just weigh in on all three if you want. I've got Houston over 51.5. Hey, they're only 7-point dogs at OKC. And they've got like the 11 game gap on them in OKC. I feel like this is a team that should win like upper mid 50s. I think Kevin Durant's going to help them out. I really like what I've seen in their offense. They had the best offense in the preseason. I like the double big lineup. I mean, we saw postseason during the season that double big lineup has smashed. I think teams are trying to mimic that, and like they don't have the personnel to do it. Like no one rebounds like Steven Adams does. No one can kind of play in the pocket like Alfred Şengün does. I was impressed by Alfred Şengün guarding Zion in the preseason. I think this team's got just enough depth to get them through while guys are out. You mentioned Dorian Finney-Smith's ability to be a winning player. They've got so many ways to cover you. The defense is going to be awesome. It's been bad in the preseason. Not worried about that. But yeah, I just think this Rockets team is really good. I think the market kind of dinged a little bit for Fred VanVleet. Not too into Reed Shepherd, but I just love the size, the rebounding, and the coaching. I think Ime Udoka is one of the best coaches in the NBA. So this, like a Kevin Durant thing, could derail it, but I trust Amen, I trust Şengün, and I trust the depth behind them. Even Josh Okogie is a capable NBA defender. So this, betting on a lot of defense here. Should note the Warriors had the best defense after the break, I think, or for a big pocket of it they did. So betting overs on defense and betting unders on bad defense. I think Memphis defenses suck. So yeah, Austin, you could kind of throw anything else out there and wrap up anything you want to add on our additional honorable mentions.
Yeah. Neutral on the Houston one. I do think Durant, for all of his flaws, is a great fit with Houston. I think I'm just a little concerned, and I agree that Ime is just an incredible coach. A little concerned that their offense was dysfunctional without Fred last year, and it could be ugly for at least part of the season. But I think if the Reed Shepherd experiment doesn't work, they are going to go acquire. It's low-hanging fruit. Like, you don't need that good of a point guard with the rest of this defense. So I think it could have some growing pains early in the season, but I do think they'll shore it up regardless, and they have the assets to do it. So I'm pretty neutral on Houston. I think I definitely agree on the Clippers being an elite team, momentum wise. I haven't bet the regular season win total for the same reason that Saum doesn't like the Philly regular season win total. Like, you'd rather target the sort of upper end outcomes. I think the Clippers are kind of like, they know their team is good. They're going to situationally rest guys so that they can be as healthy as possible for the playoffs. So I think I'm going to be betting a lot of Clips this year, but more single game and like long shot future stuff than the win total median. But I agreed with Saum on all his points. And then Chicago.
If I could add really quick
Yeah.
on the Clippers, Kawhi's playing a boatload in the preseason. He's 6th in the NBA in first half minutes. He looks awesome. All the buzz has been crazy. So you get like 55 games out of Kawhi Leonard. Even like 55 is not that much to ask for. Like, that bet's going to probably coast, but go ahead.
And then I think Chicago at 32.5 is a no bet for me. But if I were forced to bet one way or the other in Chicago, I think I would bet the under 33.5 plus 110 on Caesars, just because I don't really have a strong take on the 32.5. I'm pretty neutral. And I just think like all the points are well taken, and the beat reporters seem to think it's an easy bet. But like, talent wise, I just don't think that there's that much talent on this Bulls team. They can easily beat this over, basically, just with the pace and the effort and beating these tired teams on back to backs, and just all the reasons that they did the last few years. But more neutral on that one, I think. And then I have two other ones that I'm going to basically go through fast because I don't love them as much as the ones I mentioned. Spurs under 44.5, which I think no one here loves, but all of us like, kind of. And then Boston over 41.5, which I don't think I have many followers on that one. So
no, I actually like it.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I like it now. I mean, Derek White looks like a different player. I think their depth's fine. I think Josh Minot's giving. I was worried about their wing depth, but I like what I saw of Josh Minot. I think
He's
Jordan
good, yeah.
Walsh is like a fine like 9th guy. So I've got, and I think Neemias Keita is a pretty capable. Not like a top 20 big, but I think he's like serviceable. So yeah, I've the last couple of games I've been pretty encouraged. And coaching, like, I think Joe Mazzulla is an awesome coach. But yeah, go ahead if you want to wrap it up. Sorry.
Yeah, no. Everything you said, I agree with, and I think their offense is going to be just as good. I think the defense might suffer from what it was in the past, but Boston kind of like OKC, where like they would rest guys last year and be partially staffed, and then just be like cruising and crushing these like teams with bad schemes because their schemes are so good. And they just generate such good looks on offense, and they force such bad shots on defense. Worried about how the drop and the like works without their defenders from last year. It's going to be a lot worse, but offensively, I think
they had 8 blocks in the first half yesterday.
Yeah. So we'll see. I think the scheme is the big thing here. I don't think that people like bake into account enough, like the coaching and the scheme and the continuity, just like the system in place that isn't an individual player. And then you still have like Anthony Simons looks so good. Like, you got Pritchard, you have Hauser, you have Derek White, you have Jaylen Brown. Like, minus the bigs, I think this team is still very talented. So yeah. And then just to bet them to win more than half their games. And then the other one is the Spurs. The Spurs depth is really good. I'm buying the sort of like the love for the Spurs. It's not an anti-Spurs thing. It's just 44.5 puts them above these teams. Like, they're 10 wins above Portland. They're 4 wins above Dallas. Like opening night, you just look at it. I know that De'Aaron might miss, but like San Antonio at Dallas is Mavs are favored by 2.5 in Dallas. Yeah. So they're pretty close to an even team. Like, I just don't think that the Spurs are clear cut above this kind of flat. Like, everyone else in the West is in 39.5, 40.5. And I don't think that the Spurs are clearly elevated. Basically this loses if Wemby is what he looks like he has been in the preseason. And that's why it's an honorable mention, and their depth is really good, but like, like it's just asking for a huge step forward. They won, I think, 32 games last year. They were in the 20s the year before. It's just a lot of growth to break a lot of losing habits in a really loaded West. So that's where I'm on those two.
Yeah, I'll say I almost took this, and I was like, I was really impressed by Dylan Harper in Summer League. I was like, let me see how Dylan Harper looks in the preseason. He looks really good. So I like it. Like you said, I would take that side, but it's probably going to be a no bet. Sam, if you want to wrap it up on any of our notes, and we'll jam out of here.
Yeah, kind of quick thoughts on those. I mean, Houston over 51.5. Don't love it. If I did take a side, I'd probably take the over. It's just, it's really bad. Like, I think Ime is like a really strong coach, and a lot of the reason why I took them on our pod last year. But my worry is, I mean, the backcourt is just question marks galore. And like, if betting on a team's win or 50 games, like, I want to feel rock solid about pretty much everything there. But the individual pieces combined with Ime, I think is strong enough probably that they'll be a really elite team. Really, with Austin on the Spurs under 44.5, probably would have made like my honorable mentions. I understand like all the the cases to be optimistic on them, but I think their total right now is basically assuming like that all comes true and being like a mid-40s win team already in the West. But again, it's not fun to bet against Wemby, but I do think the under 44.5 I agree with. And then Boston, honestly, I don't have like a take on. If you had to ask me like, which of the like totals on like any team I feel like most neutral about, it might be this one. Honestly, I could see it's going both ways. So yeah, I don't have really much to add on the Boston over or 41.5, but those other two ones with you guys there.
Yep, that's it. So this is a lot of fun. We had a lot to cover here. Hopefully we're all going to go undefeated and all these bets are going to win. I'm sure someone's going to miss here, but this is really fun. We're almost there, man. Like I said, 2 more days in the preseason. We're ready to go. I've been writing my preseason notes every day. I'm up to like 30,000 words, like recapping the preseason. We take this stuff really, really seriously. So the draft kit is up for all you people who still have drafts coming this weekend. I know a lot of people do. I have some drafts coming up. Really excited about that. I've got perfect drafts for both sites, ESPN and Yahoo. Default ranks covered for both. I've got just an insane amount of content for if you're prepared, and it's just $25 on top of full stat. So if you're betting season long props, you have to do it. Like, what's $25 if you're putting $300, $400, $500 to get the best stuff that you can get out there with all our full stat projections for the entire league? We have 2-way guys projected. We've got everybody projected. So feel really good about that. And then our in-season product is out. Subscriptions will be going out very soon. But you could subscribe right now. Go to the establishedrun.com/NBA. Go to that subscribe tab, and you can get a weekly subscription, monthly, full season for everything. We've got the prop subscription coming out. We did really well, especially earlier in the year. We do really, really well. So yeah, figure out what's best for you. Certainly, read the FAQ and everything. But yeah, really, really excited here. I cannot wait for the season to start. So really appreciate Austin and Saum coming on. And Saum the King, he's going to go undefeated again here. So yeah, really appreciate you guys. We'll see you guys next time to cover bigger picture stuff. So again, appreciate you. We'll catch you next time.